And the question is, on November the 5th, who will we be as a state? What will our direction look like? What path will we be on based on who we have elected? And between the two choices that voters will have in front of them on November the 4th, we have two very, very different paths that we will go down. We can go down a path that supports public education and restoring the funding to public education, or we'll go down a path with someone who's been fighting in court for the last 3 years to keep $5.4 billion in cuts to public education in place. We can go down a path that says every 4-year-old in this state should have full-day quality pre-K, or we can go down a path with someone who believes that 4-year-olds ought to have standardized tests to demonstrate that they're worthy of a pre-K program. We can go down a path that says it's important to bring $100 billion of our tax money back down from the federal government in the next 10 years to cover 1 to 1.5 million hardworking Texans through health insurance that they otherwise would not have. Or we can choose someone who thinks it's a good idea for us to send our $100 billion to provide health care to people in California or New York rather than coming back to the state to work for us. We can choose someone who believes that women ought to be paid equally for equal work. Or we can choose someone who believes that that's not a Texas value, that has said he'll veto a bill that comes to his desk for equal pay, and who pays women in his office $6,000 a year less than he pays men for doing the exact same work. We can pick a governor who is going to value the incredible work of our veterans, and I see a veteran standing right here behind us who will make sure that they receive the health care and the jobs that they deserve when they come home when they return from serving us overseas. Or we can pick someone who isn't going to make that their priority. We can pick someone who believes we ought to invest in transportation and water infrastructure in this state and keep our economy strong. Or we can pick someone who doesn't have a vision to make sure that Texas heads in that direction. Very, very different paths. And as you talk to people today, you'll have an opportunity to tell them what's at stake in this election, making sure that women's reproductive rights are protected, making sure that the people of this state have a voice in the Capitol. I've been in the Texas Senate for 6 years, and I've been disappointed to see the voices that truly matter there are a very few, very well funded, very well heeled special interests. And we certainly know from looking at the record of the person I am running against that that is who he represents. We've watched it over and over in this campaign. We've watched him take money from chemical companies like the Coke Industries and then suddenly reverse 3 decades of Texas law that said that people deserve to know whether dangerous chemicals are being stored next to them. We've watched as he's taken over $200,000 from the payday lending industry and then written an attorney general's opinion that gave them the green light to charge families whatever they wanted to charge. That was a nice little interruption there. And we've seen this pattern over and over again with a person who's taken huge donations from Farmers Insurance while he was overseeing a case on behalf of insureds and then settled for pennies on the dollar, so bad so that the judge said to him, you don't just have to lay down to Farmers Insurance. But he did. And he sold out the insureds of this state, and in exchange, he took almost $200,000 in political donations from that company. And we've seen just recently in the news, in this last week, that a doctor who was literally maiming and killing people as a surgeon at one of our hospitals in this state has now got the protection of our Attorney General stepping in to defend his actions after taking over $350,000 from the chair of that hospital's board that allowed him to continue to practice even though these issues had come to light many, many, many months before he was removed. We can pick a governor who is going to stand for all hardworking Texans, who's going to make sure that the voices of every hardworking Texan are the voices that matter most to her. I think that you know from my experience, I come from a place of struggle, and my education gave me the opportunity to have the privileges that I enjoy today, to stand before you as your candidate for governor. And it is my deep belief that every child in Texas should have the same opportunities that I have had the privilege of having. And I promise you this, that when we do win this election, and we will win this election, we are going to show once again what it means for real people to be the people whose voices matter in our capital. And I promise you this, that as your governor, every day that I am there, I will carry you in my gut and in my heart and in my head, and I will work as hard as I possibly can to make sure that every child, no matter who they are or where they're from, no matter their gender or their race or how rich or poor, every child in this state will have an opportunity to see their dreams realized. God bless you all.